Uda, for giving me this opportunity to meet your team. I'm very impressed by you guys. Then I appreciate that I was able to be part of your convention on the NYKO, the English session. I learned a whole lot, really. So today I really just gonna to give back to you. We are good friends and learn from each other. Okay. I do not know exactly what is it that more you guys need. Uda gave me some very simple, I guess, guidelines. Just talk about the IUL. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What is, I guess before I start with my part, let me ask you, maybe a show of hand, you can type it on chat or you can unmute yourself. What is usually the most challenging areas that you feel that you need to strengthen for your IUL, sales flow or talking to customer? What is, maybe a few people you can talk about it. What do you want to know from today?
We need help with both. How to sell and how to talk to people.
Okay. How to sell. Okay. And how to talk. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Who else?
When we start to a new client to sell about the IUL, how we start the beginning, like how to introduce about just IUL, not like other things, just starting the IUL. So he may or she may get convinced. So at a point, like what is the beginning point to make him convinced the best to sell him IUL?
All right. Okay. So how to lead the conversation? Okay. Anybody else willing to learn the differences between different type of IUL? Okay. Okay. Different type of IUL.
I have a question regarding IUL.
Okay.
Most of the cash value policies, they have two types of table. One is explaining about guaranteed and the other is non-guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And in IUL also, there are two parts. One is guaranteed and another is non-guaranteed. All the time we are talking about guaranteed, non-guaranteed side only. And when we click to the guaranteed side, the value in that part is zeros for a long time, So yes. What is that mean?
Okay, I will explain that. Guarantee versus no guarantee.
Yeah,
okay.
Guarantee versus non-guarantee.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Rakesh and I'm from Boston.
Okay.
My question that if you have time, if you can cover later is, how does the IUL works? Like, let's say once you stop paying your premiums after 20 years.
20 years.
What is the cost? Like, how does the cost? What component of the premium goes in the investment? What component goes towards the expenses, the mortality? And how does it increases or decreases over time?
Okay, very good. Alrighty. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I took down quite a few already. Maybe do you have any savings plan for kids, juveniles? Okay, very good. I will write that down. Let me see the check on chat. Kids education planning. The different type of IUL, approach people, learn the co-market, okay, both, how to sell, how to people, both, okay. All right, I tell you what, guys, let me get started with what we have now. I'm sure that the question so far may be the common question for everybody, right? And if we have time, we can do a Q&A or add some more topics into the conversation. Okay. So let me go ahead and show everybody how I normally do it. Okay. When I talk to the client, it's very important for us to position ourselves as you are the financial advisor. You are not the sales agent. You're not the insurance guy, right? You're supposed to cover everything for them. You're supposed to give the impression that you care for everything for them and not just try to sell them something. You agree, right? So how do you convey that warm up? How do you convey that you are not an insurance agent, but you are a professional financial advisor, right? So when I start, allow me to go ahead and share the screen on my side. Normally, when I start, I always talk about this page, right? And this is sort of my intro, okay? And I think that everybody's seen this page before already, right? Let me make sure I can share. Yes, I can, right? So even though that I'm going to lead them to IUL, but first of all, I want them to start thinking and look at me differently. So I'll talk about emergency fund. I will talk about the importance of understanding how to pay the mortgage. Obviously, if my audience have kids, I will also mention about the importance, how expensive it is and how we can pay for it. I'll talk about retirement, as you saw me, right, in the NYKO, right? My topic was on retirement. Then I'll talk about the investment, the risk, and I will highlight on the tax, because the IUL, we all know the taxation is one of the big selling point about the IUL, correct? Then we'll talk about, obviously, protecting the family is the important thing, right? And then estate planning. All right. So along this way, I will talk a little bit, and depending on how much time they give me, and depending on what is the area of interest. If they only give me 30 minutes, I will talk less. If they give me an hour or a little bit more, or they don't have time constraint, then I maybe talk a little bit more. And each category on my PowerPoint, I can jump back and forth, right? I have a presentation prepared for college education. I have a few slides talking about mortgage. I have a presentation about retirement, etc., etc. So based on what they are interested, I can jump into there a little bit. That's how I usually do it. I don't go straight into the IUL directly, because first of all, I want them to get used to seeing the big picture. Everything affect one another rather than, just that one product. I want them to focus on solutions and not on product, right? And the second thing I want to do is that I want to position myself as a professional. So I want them to have the image of me. I'm not just another salesperson. I'm not just another insurance agent, but rather I have the big picture, right? So with this, then they'll tell me, and then I will interact with them, okay? Then the next thing I would always talk about first, obviously, is I want them to understand the rule of 72, because that will come in very, very handy. And we all saw the rule of 72, so I'm not going to spend too much time going over it, okay? My key point is, anytime when in my later presentation, if I can, if I need to calculate any rate of return, then I can use rule of 72 very, very easily, right? And another thing I want to talk about is always about I want to set the foundation about the correct expectation. Okay, about the correct expectation, because a lot of time what I find out from most engineers is that, oh, your illustration is way too high. They always want to look at the guaranteed illustration. But how can it be guaranteed illustration? Always zero? You think always zero? That is not possible. So this page serves for me to set the foundation. And I will ask them, I say, hey, this is the American history over the past 90 years, 94 years, right? Do you agree with this, that it's always up and down, right? It's always market is always up and down, but always going up. The long-term trend is going up. And I will interact with the client. Do you agree with this? And usually I'll get a yes, okay? So that later I am preparing myself so that when I talk about non-guaranteed 6% is reasonable. It's reasonable. If I don't show this, then there's 6%, no way, never can get, no way, how do you get 6%? I want to look at 3%, I want to look at 0%. But that is not logical, right? So this page serves me as a foundation, all right? The next page, then I kind of start, inducing the pain, if you understand what I mean. I start beginning to educate them about how to deal with the market risk, right? So everybody say, market grow. But when market lost, right? So I think that you guys saw this, right? In NYKO, I talk about the IT bubble. I talk about, real estate. I talk about COVID-19, etc., right? So depending on what age they are, the older they are, like 40 years and above, this page is very, very easy to talk about. I said, are you concerned about this market risk? Are you afraid? What happens if you're near the retirement? Are you afraid, right? Are you concerned? How to solve this, right? So I'll talk about the importance of protecting the money. All right. And then the next one I want to talk about is obviously this one I had a little bit more modern, because this one is as of beginning of this year, right? That other slide is until 2020. This is more updated. And I'll tell them, hey, Mr. Customer, just beginning of this year, January until February 11 of this year, the S&P 500 dropped 7.29. Think about it. If you have $1 million, you just lost $70,000. How does that make you feel? Right? So I try to induce the pain, and make them feel the reality of the market risk, how to address, right? And why do I talk about this? It's because we need to talk about the IUL, making sure that they understand the power of the floor protection, right? Okay. Now, before I jump into any appointment, in all my appointment, it doesn't matter it's IUL appointment, it doesn't matter it's college education, it doesn't matter it's retirement, any appointment, I will always show the impact of tax, because nobody likes to pay more tax. But very, very few people understand how bad the tax it is to our financial life. Okay, so if you are engineer, you can use this slide. Okay, if you're not engineer, it's okay. You can still use it too. You just go a little bit faster, right? So let me show you. Maybe some of you guys may see this already. So I'll say, Mr. Client, okay, let's say that we need to invest to have a financial freedom. You agree? And they say, yeah, of course I agree, right? Okay, so let's invest. So let's say if I have $1 to invest, if I have $1 and I double my money, now I have $2, right? I have $2. Okay, what is the mathematical formula? Is 2 to the power of 1. Is 2 to the power of 1, right? Now, if I double $2 again and 2 becomes 4, you agree? And 4 becomes 8, and so on and so forth. So the mathematical formula, do you agree, Mr. Client, is 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2, 2 to the power of 3, you agree? And it doesn't matter. Even if they are very bad at math, they will all say, yeah, I agree. Right? Because I'm leading the conversation, right? And I say, okay, Mr. Client, I'm going to double it 20 times. If I were to double it 20 times, do you agree that the formula is 2 to the power of 20? Right? And they would agree, right? And I say, the answer for that 2 to the power of 20 is $1 million, right? So that simply means that if you have $1, you double it 20 times, you have a 1 million. Okay? And then I will say, however, you do understand that anytime we make money on the game, we have to pay tax, right? And they say, yeah, of course, right? Okay, so let's say that we just make a simple adjustment for tax. Let's say for simplicity, I'm just going to say 33% tax. 33%, not too high, not too low. And I'll say I live in California, we have a state tax also, right? So between federal tax and the state tax, 33%. You think that's too high or too low? Is that okay? And usually they'll say, okay. I lead a conversation. I say, is that okay? And they always say, okay, right? So I say, okay. So now, same thing. I have my dollar and I double my money. I have $1, right? All right. Now I'm paying 33%. So after tax, do you agree that I have $1.67? And they'll say, yes. You don't have to worry too much about the formula, especially if their math is not very good. You say it's $1.67, 33 cents, 33% gone, right? Okay, let's say if I double my money again, right? And then I double and I double and I double and I also double 20 times, right? And then I will ask the Mr. Client, right? Or Mrs. Client. So, Mr. Client, we already know that 2 to the power of 20 is 1 million, but that is untaxed. What if I took 33% tax, adjust for 33% tax? How much do you think this number would be? And I'll let them think about it a little bit. Right there, I will stop a little bit. I say, what do you think, Mr. or Mrs. Client? And usually nobody ever get it right. Nobody ever get it right. They'll say, oh, maybe 700,000, maybe 600,000, because they're just thinking about 33% less, right? Okay, and then I will give them the answer. I said, Mr. Client, it's only 28,000. And I see Shamila, you open your mouth, you say, wow, is that real? Really? No way, right? And depend on the customer. If they are very, very engineer oriented, I will simply go back to Excel really, really quick, and you see me. Let me go ahead and do that very, very quick. And you don't have to do this. Let me go ahead and let me see if I can find my, give me 1 second. Okay, let me do an Excel, okay? Excel. All right, let me go ahead and see this.
I'm also in the state of really now.
Okay, in the state of really, right? Exactly, right, Raja, right? Okay. So depending on really, Raja, I'm going to prove to you that really, yes, really, and Shamila, really, yes, okay. You don't have to do this every time, but it's the engineer you want to do it because everybody very familiar with Excel, right? So I simply say, Mr. Client, yeah, and I'll talk about my story. I said, Mr. Client, when I joined the company 13 years ago, when I first saw it, I opened my mouth. I said, how could it be? No way. So what I did is I put Excel. Do you agree that? Then let me go ahead and make this bigger. Make it bigger, right? Excel, everybody knows how to use Excel, right? 2 to the power of 20. Mr. Mrs. Client, is that the formula 2 to the power of 20? And they'll say, yes, that's the formula. And the answer is 1 million, right? $1,448,000, correct? All right. So what about 1.67 to the power of 20? Is that the correct formula, Mr. Client? And they'll say, yes, of course. It's $28,000, right? So I do it very, very fast to prove to them my PowerPoint is correct. That's all I do, okay? Now, if it's somebody who is usually not very technical oriented, I don't necessarily need to do this. I don't do this every time, okay? It's just depending on my audience. You follow me, guys, so far?
Oh, yes. That was a good one, man. I was not realizing this number, man.
Yeah, you put it in your calculator, right? And you said, really? Yeah, really. Right? Okay, so let's continue. So why do I want to talk about that? Because I want to lead the conversation into the importance of saving tax, right? And then I go through that, right? And then I'll say, let me show you. I'm sorry, I have one more slide I need to show really quick. What happened to my slide there? Okay. Can you guys see this slide?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? So I'll say that, let me show you in a different way. Are you familiar with Fidelity? And they say, yes. Usually Fidelity, everybody knows, right? So Fidelity, one of the mutual fund, very, very famous, is called Magellan Fund. And I'll say, Mr. Client, if I had $10,000 and I invested in this fund in 1963, yes, and I just left it there. I did not touch it. I just left it there. Guess what? By 2019, my $10,000 became 38 million. What do you think about that? And they say, wow, really, right? Okay. And I say, yeah, definitely. That's the power of compounding. But the point here is not the 38 million. The point is that I had to pay the tax. So after tax, how much do I have left? That's the key point. You agree, right? And as you see my conversation, do you see that I always engage with the client? Right? I'll say, do you agree? Do you follow me? I always do that so that they participate, right? Okay. And I say, guess what? If I adjusted for only 33%, guess what? After adjusting in the long term, I only have 11.6 million, right? So think about it. 37 million and you only keep 11. How do you feel about that? That is how much? That is 69% loss, Mr. Client. I only adjust 33, but because of the compounding effect, I end up only with 11. That is, I lost almost 70%. So that is the power of compounding. Compounding can help us, but also can hurt us, depending on what we are compounding, right? And I'll talk about that. And I say that is why it's very important to understand about tax. And I'll say, Mr. Client, do you have a tax strategy? And they usually say, well, I have 401k or something like that, right? And I'll say, well, in America, you can put the money, the IRS allow us to save the tax, to pay the tax 3 different ways, right? One is the tax yearly, right? And the example that I show you, right, in the $1.67, right, only 28,000. That is if I pay tax every single year. Every single year, I end up with $28,000, right? If I tax defer, I have $1 million, right? So some of the vehicle I will relate with them, savings, stock, mutual fund, rental income, right? And right now, I'm talking to you very, very fast, right? But when I talk to the client, I don't speak so fast. I will slow down. I would engage, right? And then I will make sure I will make sure that I protect myself, right? Because in the stock, you remember, right? The stock is if you sell, then you pay the tax. You agree? If you buy and hold, you actually don't pay the tax yet, right? So I will make sure I will mention that because I don't want the client to challenge my authority. I don't want the client to question my knowledge. So I want to make sure I cover all corners. Yeah, of course, the stock means that if you were to have sold the stock on the same year you made money, you have to pay tax on that year. You agree with that, right? And things like that. Rental income, if you have a rental property, Mr. Client, do you have rental property? And they say yes, maybe they say yes. Okay, and you collect the rent, right? That's part of your income. When you collect the rent, let's say how much rent you collect, maybe 1,500 per month. I say, yeah, okay, 1,500. 12 months is 18,000. 18,000 is your income. You have to pay the tax. You agree, right? Of course, you can take some deduction for your expense. So again, I protect myself, right? The second category is the tax deferred. Are you familiar with the 401k or IRA? And most people will say, yes, I'm familiar, right? I say, Mr. Client, for the 401k, when do you pay tax? I say, well, at the end, when I take out the money. Oh, you are very good. You are very you very good. So I EPR the customer too, right? I give them credit. I EPR them along the way, right? I give them the recognition, right? Okay. So all this category, you pay tax at the end. So think about the dollar, the 2 to the power of 20. You have $1 million. You pay the tax at the end, right? So even $1 million, you pay 50% tax. You still have $500,000 left. So in the middle, you have 500,000. On the left, you only have 28,000. Which one do you prefer, Mr. Client? And obviously, it's a very obvious question, right? Do you see how I direct the client? I always get the answer that I want. I always ask the question, but I always get the answer from them. And it's exactly the question that I want to hear. That way, I never have objection. I don't have too much objection because I make them talk. I make them give the answer that I want. You follow me? So I control the conversation very good, right? Okay. And then the last thing I said, are you familiar, Mr. Client, with what if you don't have, are you familiar with tax advantage or tax free? And usually they will kind of be puzzled, right? They look kind of puzzled, right? And I won't go into IUL directly because most people never heard of IUL, right? I said, are you familiar with Roth IRA or Roth 401k? And some people say yes, some people say no, right? If they say no, then I explain very fast. I say Roth is very similar to the IRA, except that you pay tax first already. However, all your gain in the future is tax-free. Do you like tax-free? And of course, again, the answer is yes, I love tax-free, right? And then I'll ask, 529 is for college, muni bonds. And then are you familiar with investment grade insurance plans? Investment grade insurance plans? And they usually say, no, I never heard of it. Are you familiar with the tax code 7702? Oh, no, I never heard of it, right? So this is a key point. I will ask right here, Mr. or Mrs. Client, if you want to save on tax, let me ask you, should you put more money on the left or on the right? And guess what? That's an obvious answer. Mr. Client, if you want to save tax, should you put the money on the left side or on the right side? What do you think the answer is going to be? On the right side, of course, right? On the right side, on the tax advantage. You guys follow me? Right? And then do you see that I narrow down to talk about what I want to talk to? Right? So they don't ask me, about real estate, about 401k. I eliminate all that. And I'm not coming to the client and say, I want to show you the IUL. I let the client tell me, I want to learn about the IUL. Do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. One thing is that I want to show you the IUL. The other thing is that you ask me, what is the IUL? What IUL? It's a lot easier for me to go into the conversation of the IUL. So there was a question, how to introduce the conversation, how to lead the conversation, right? So do you see it's very easy, right? Because everybody say, okay, I know everything, but I don't know about the IUL. What is that? I never heard of that. Tell me about that. Okay, and then go into my conversation, right? That's exactly what I want anyway. You agree? Okay. So I always talk about tax because most people are not familiar with the tax, right? Now,
just quick, that's that acronyms IGIP. So we say that is investment grade insurance policy or investment grade insurance plan. I see. We say in investment graded. Okay.
Right, in investment grade. And they say, what is that? What is that? You know, and you can simply, very, very simply say, oh, you know, are you familiar with cash value insurance plan? Right? So it's a life insurance, but you build investment inside and all the investment grows tax free. So they hear, okay, easy to understand. Easy to understand.
Mhm.
Right? Now, it depends on who it is. If I have a CPA, if my client is a CPA or is some engineer, right? They say, okay, and I'll ask this question. I'll say, you know, do you agree that in America, everything that has a tax benefit always have a tax code? 401k tax code, right? 403 is a tax code. 529 is a tax code. 7702 is a tax code. You agree? Oh yeah, of course. Okay. So let me, and let's say, assuming that the client say, okay, talk to me about the IGIP, right? Okay. So this slide is kind of optional. This slide is a little bit optional. You don't have to show it. Depend on the people, right? Depend on your audience and depends on how much time do you have, right? Maybe 30 minutes, then I don't talk about this one, right? And I say, Mr. Client, did you know that in America, the life insurance plan enjoyed the tax benefit for more than 100 years ago? Did you know that? And most people say, no, I didn't know that. I just came to US 2 years ago. I don't know that, right? I said, let me show you. Okay, so do you know that the 101, the IRC code 101, that was established, that was enacted in 100 years ago in 1913. And it talked about what? It talked about death benefit is tax-free, right? In 1984, the tax, it talked about all the growth inside insurance is tax deferred, right? 1988, it said that there must be a limit, a maximum you can fund it, the 7-pay, right? And then it in the IRC 72 allows tax-free withdrawal, tax-free taken out from the policy, right? And then also the terminal illness, right? 101G and also 7702B, that's for long-term care. So I'll talk about it kind of fast for them to see, oh, I didn't know that. This is 100 years ago. Because a lot of people say, oh, I never heard of it. When you did not hear of it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You agree? Right? You just haven't heard of it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So I will show this, but this slide is kind of optional. It's kind of optional. I don't show it every time. Okay? Now, so I jump into, okay, let me teach you, let me share with you. I never use the word teach. The word teach is no good. Okay? Because that means I want to teach you. That means that I'm higher than you. Right? So I always say, let me share with you. Let me share with you, right? Because I want them to feel comfortable, right? Okay. So it's very, very simple. I will tell them. It's very, very simple, right? Right here, I have an insurance plan. Because it's insurance, obviously there is a cost of insurance. You agree? So there's a cost of insurance for that insurance. However, if I were to fund above the insurance, right, I have a minimum in this blue area. The minimum is that part I can go and grow as an investment. You follow me, Mr. Client? Right? I have the cost, and then I'll use a real example. Say, for example, what if my cost was $100? Okay? And I fund the policy with $300. So 100 is the cost, and 200 is for savings. The total is 300. You follow me? And say, oh yeah, I follow you. Easy, right? Okay, so that part is making the interest. I can make money from the interest. Now, what if I put a little bit more money? What if I put $500? Right? So again, my cost is 100. Now I put 500, I have 400 to invest, right? Now, what if I have more money still? What if, say, for example, I have $1,000? Right? So I put $1,000, 100 is the cost, 900 is the investment. You follow me, Mr. Client? And they'll say, yeah, easy to understand. This is a concept of overfunding. So, Mr. Client, let me ask you, if you want to make interest, which one would make you most interest? Minimum funding or in the middle or max funding? Your cost is the same. Which one would be the most that you can earn interest? And that's very easy to understand. You agree? Yeah, it's the maximum. It's the maximum, right? This one, I only have $200 extra. If I make 10% return, $200, 10% is $20, right? What if I put 500? $400 is for invest, 10% is how much? $50, right? What if $1,000? $100 is the cost, $900 invest, 10%, how much is that? $90. The return is the same, but in my base is different. You agree? So usually the customer by here, they can easily understand because very, very easy, right? Okay, then I will educate the client. I say, okay, now I have this extra money, right? Above my cost, the extra money. How can I invest it? Well, I have some choices. Within the plan, they usually give me some basic account. The basic is very safe, but it's limited growth, maybe between 2 to 4%. Okay, we put it in the IUL has a fixed account, right? The basic account, right? Or I can use the VUL. VUL, I don't talk about it too much because most of my agent, they don't have a security license. All right. But this one, I would just, think about this as your 401k. Inside your 401k, you have a lot of mutual funds. You agree? So this one is exactly like your mutual fund, except you don't have to pay taxes. Do you see how I talk easy to understand? It's almost the same as your 401k, has a lot of mutual funds. I can grow with the market, but I don't have to pay taxes, right? That way they can easily understand, right? Okay. Or this one is the most popular now. Now this one is the most popular. It's called the index. Let me show you. Do you see that this graph, it has up and down with the red line? Yes. So the red line seems that I never lose money. I have a floor protection. I will explain shortly, right? And that's how it goes. I have a floor, but I can continue to grow up to a cap. Do you follow me, Mr. Client? And this is the concept of overfunding. Make sense to you? And so, okay. And remember, Mr. Client, I'll always remember all this tax-free. Do you like tax-free? What do you think the answer is? Yeah, of course. I love it.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and if necessary, I will show a little graph over here. Right? So let me give you a little example. So the red line is the S&P 500. Let's take it from year 2000 until year 2010. Right? This is the actual S&P 500. That's why they call it the lost decade, right? So do you remember 2001, the IT bubble began? That year, the market dropped 16%. But because I have this protection with the floor, I actually get 0%. I don't lose money, right? The second year, market continues to drop 18%. I don't lose. But when the market goes up, I have a cap. In this example, the cap was 15%, depending on the company. And so on and so forth. Do you see 2008? The market dropped 40%, right? But guess what? I did not drop. So over the past 10 years, the actual S&P lost 7.42%. But because I have this kind of plan that protects the bottom, right? I actually, the same period of time, it actually doubled 102%. So if I have $100,000 at the beginning, guess what? If I did not protect and the market dropped, I end up only 92,000. I lost money over 10 years. But because I protected, guess what? Now I have $200,000. Do you see the power of protecting the floor? Okay. Do you follow me thus far? And sometimes they say, sometimes yes. I look at their eyes, right? Sometimes they look like they're confused. If they're confused, then I explain a little bit more. If they say, oh yeah, this is too easy, man. Can you speak faster? Okay, then I go even faster, right? Okay. So I will explain the concept. Actually, I should show this slide faster first. So, Mr. Client, let me make sure you understand the concept of the floor and the cap. Okay. So let's, for example, take the S&P 500. Okay, the S&P 500, you're familiar, right? So let's say that if I have a floor of 0, means I never lose money, okay? And I have a cap of 12%. Okay, so let me make sure you understand. If the market return 10%, if the S&P return 10%, well, how much do you get, Mr. Client? And I'll see if they are fast. I'll let them answer. If they cannot answer, I give you the answer. That is the answer, 10%, right? What if the market returned 20%? Well, remember your cap was 12, so you only get up to the 12, the cap, right? Now, what if the market negative right? Remember what is it, right? And I let them think, right? Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. I'll just give them the answer is 0. And that's the concept, right? Okay, so that's good. All right, let me see. All right. Now, this page, I show it optional. Optional, okay? You don't always have to show it, okay? For engineer, you can show it. Let me show you how it works. So, Mr. Client, let's assume that I have a floor of 0.75 and I have a cap of 15. Different company have different floor and different cap. Usually it's 0. Some company have 15. So this company, I'm going to use is 15 and say the cap was 15%. Okay? All right. So, Mr. Client, let's say that I have some money in the plan. And let's say that after all the costs, okay, all the insurance cost is gone, I have $1,000 in the account. It's January 1st, 2021. I have $1,000 in my account, right? After 1 year, unfortunately, what happened to the market? The market actually dropped 30%. So my 1,000 lost 30% is $700. You agree? Right? Yes. Okay. But remember that I have a floor, right? So what is my floor? 0.75. So I don't lose money. I still get a little bit interest, 0.75. What about the following year? The following year, the market continued to drop. 700 now is only 550. Oh my God, right? So how much did I lose? The market lost 21%, right? But because I have a floor, I still get the floor. I don't lose money, right? And then the next year, what happened? The market grow a little bit. Oh, thank God, finally, right? So how much do I get? Well, I get 10.9. Why? Because my cap is 15. You follow me? Right? And the client say, yeah, I follow you. And then the last year, the market did quite well, 16%. Mr. Client, how much do I get? Right? And I let them answer, right? If they answer, then I know that they understand it. If they cannot follow me, then I know I need to slow down or explain again. So I can read the customer, the mind. I can read their eyes and the body language, and I can tell where are they with me, right? All right. So now we understand. Let's put it in play. So actually, I have $1,000. Do you agree that after a few years, I lose money? I only have 710. But because I have a floor and have a 15% cap, guess what happened? The first year, market dropped 30. I actually got 0.75. I make $7. Not bad. The second year, market dropped 21. I still get $7. So I got $15, right? The third year, the market 10.9%. I got 11.26. The following year, the market went up and I get 12.95. So do you see, Mr. Client? That's 82% difference. 82% difference. So the IUL, the concept of IUL, Mr. Client, is based on fluctuation, not direction. Let me repeat that. Fluctuation, not direction. Do you see that the direction is negative? But because it has up and down, up and down, up and down, that's called fluctuation. So IUL can still make money even though that the direction is negative. You follow me? And they say yes or no, and I can maybe slow down and I can ask some question. I can answer some question. Okay? So far, any question for me thus far? Am I speaking too fast, too slow? Anything for me?
That's okay. I can follow.
You good.
So far, so good. Sam, you can finish it up. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you repeat that fluctuation and other word? Fluctuation and other what you say?
Direction.
The what?
One is fluctuation and other word you were saying fluctuation and
direction, right?
Direction, okay.
The direction is negative, right? But the fluctuation is up and down, right? So IUL makes money anytime you have up and down. Which means that IUL, you always make money regardless of how the market is doing, because market is never going to be a straight line. It's always going to fluctuation, right? If you fluctuation, you make money. Okay.
Hey, Sam, I had a question in the previous slide. If you can go a little bit 2 or 3 back.
A few slides. Okay.
Yes.
Which one?
This one right here.
Okay. Okay.
One of my clients asked, it could be some kind of questions, ordinary questions or something, but one of my clients said, how are they managing when the market is going down?
Oh, very good question. That's too good to be true, right?
Right, exactly.
How is that possible? Oh, yeah. I have all my weapons to defend my. I will show you how I defend, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, I will answer that question. Very good question. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So let me continue. Let me see. Where am I at?
Yes, and
right.
let's finish it up when we come to the question at the end.
Okay. So you always want to show real example, preferably your own case. Okay. So in this is.
Excuse me.
What?
Can you enlarge your slide presentation more?
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, good. Very good.
All right. So you see, I'm going to show you, Mr. Client. This is actually one of my clients. He's 24 years old. I block out the name, right? But what I want to highlight to you is the power of zero, the power of protecting, right? So right here, the client, I'll make sure, because too many numbers, they cannot follow you. So I had to guide them. I had to lead them, right? The client paid the money every month, July, August, September, October, November, blah, 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 right? You follow me? Yes. Okay. So the actual market is the index change. You follow me? So do you see that the market, the July is only 1.25 growth. The next month is negative, and then you went up. But the last 3 months, 4 months, all negative. But guess what? When it's negative, do you see I don't lose money? When it's negative, I don't lose money, right? Right? Of course, when it's positive, I only get to the cap. My cap is, in this example, is 15%, right? Right here, I will be very, very careful because right now the cap rates are low. So you cannot, I suggest don't show 15, right? You can show maybe 12 or it's better. Or you can always explain to the client, okay, in this example, the cap 15, but the cap is subject to change depending on the market. In this example, it was 15%, okay, at the time of the statement. But the key point, you want to highlight the negative months, and you don't lose money with the plan. How does that make you feel? You feel you can sleep better at night? And say, yeah, of course, I love it, right? So on and so forth. Now, any question for me, Mr. Client? And they'll say, how do they do that? Just like Sharam, right? How is that do that? It's too good to be true, right? I say, you know what? America financial industry is very strong. Nothing too good to be true, right? You come to America from Nepal. I come from Taiwan. You found something too good to be true? You tell me, I join you. Nothing. Right? Nothing too good to be true, right? Everything has a logic. Let me explain to you how does it work, okay? So this is very important that you understand it, all right? So what is the concept behind the index strategy? How can they protect the floor, right? So let's say that you have $1,000 in your policy. After all the costs, you have $1,000. In the insurance policy. So what the insurance company do for you is that they take your $1,000 and they put it in two separate buckets. One bucket, $950, the other bucket, $50. Okay, so far so good. Now, the insurance company are very conservative. They'll take the $950, they will usually invest in the high-grade corporate bonds because they are most safe, right? They don't have the very high growth, but they are usually safe. Long-term, about 5% is doable. Long-term, 5%. By the way, I interrupt. Do you remember at the beginning, I showed the 90-year America history, the government bond 5%? Do you see how I can justify it? I can back myself up, right? That is why I show it. Okay. So this $950 invest in the corporate bond or the government bond, get about 5%. So what happened after 1 year, Mr. Client, at 5%? Mr. Client, do you agree that after 1 year, your $950 gets back to about $1,000 at 5%? Is that about right? Right? Roughly speaking, that's about right, right? I say, yeah. So 950 times 5%, I get back to $1,000. Right? Now, what about the $50? What is happening with the $50? The insurance company is taking the $50 and negotiating with the major financial company, like maybe like Goldman Sachs or maybe like Merrill Lynch or JP Morgan, big company. And they say, I make you a deal. I use $50 and I want to buy some call options. I'm going to buy the S&P 500 call options. What does that mean? That simply means it's very, very simple, right? So the call option works like this. So Mr. Goldman Sachs, You take my customer $1,000, yes? And if the market grow by 12%, how much is that 12%? Do you agree is $120? 12% of 1,000 is $120. So what happened? The client earns $120, right? So that $120 gets into the client's account. All right. Now, what happened if the market drops? What happened if the market dropped minus 10%? Well, guess what? Now the $1,000 become $900, right? Okay. Guess what? Then the client gets nothing, zero, right? And the $50 is gone. $50 is the money to buy the call option. So what the insurance company is doing is tell the Goldman Sachs, I give you $1,000. You just give me between 0 and 12. Anything above that is yours. Anything above is yours. You take it. Let me ask you, Mr. Client, do you remember what happened to S&P 500 last year? Oh, you grew 30%, 26%. Well, in this, you don't have to give me 26%. You just give me 12%. The remaining is yours. Do you follow me? Long term, the big company, they can make way more than 12%. You agree? That's yours. You make your money and you charge me $50. But you have to guarantee me floor protection, and I just need something in between. Something in between, I give it to my customer. Anything above it is yours. Anything lost, you take it. You charge me $50. And that's how it works. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Is that simple to understand, right?
It is so powerful. Thank you so very much.
Exactly. And that's it. And that's it. That is my flow, right? And I finish my flow, and then I say, do you have any question for me? And the client say yes or no, blah, blah, blah. I say, I tell you what, let me show you with the actual numbers. I always want to use an illustration, because the number speaks volume, right? So let's say, let me go to the my illustration, right? You guys use Nationwide mostly, is that correct? Okay, let me ask you something. Everybody can give me a little feedback. You can type in the chat. What is typically the size of your policy? Is it 100K, 500K, 1 million? What is the face amount, typically speaking, on average for you guys?
500K.
Okay, so 500K. All right, so let's go ahead and do 500K. All right. So I'm going to change it really quick, and I will use the IUL. And then I'll right now I usually use the new height, okay? But they all work about the same way, okay? So I use the new height. Okay, so why don't you guys give me, how about somebody 40 years old is great? 40 years old is okay? Okay, hold on a second. Hey, can I call you back? Hello, can I call you back? Yeah, what's up? Yeah. Yeah, okay. What is your question?
Recording in progress.
I apologize, guys. All right, so let's do a 40-year-old male. Is that okay? 40 years old is okay?
Yeah, that's
Yes?
fine.
Go ahead.
40 years old. All right, now pay attention to how I structure it. Okay, usually I will identify the client first. How much money do they have? Roughly, along my conversation, right? Do they have are they like, very well-to-do, or they're like a paycheck to paycheck, right? So normally speaking, let me just go ahead and use the target funding, okay? And normally speaking, I'll use like 500K right here. All right, for this person who is relatively young, I can switch, right? I can use increasing until maybe age 60. And then that way we'll give them a little bit more death benefit, age 61 to max. All right, I'll go ahead and do that. And then I will go ahead and do the target. And then I'll use it until age 65. When I'm doing this, I'm not even telling the client what am I doing because it's too much explain. I'll explain later. Okay, I'll change it to monthly. All right. Normally speaking, I don't use the riders. However, on the interest, I will come back and I'll make the adjustment over here. Just for simplicity, I'll just change this. I'll just change to 6%. Right? Do you see that I can run to 6.02? I just round it to 6%, and that's it. And let me just go ahead and calculate. Alrighty. So right here, the first thing I go is that I go to the premium summary. Okay, I go to the premium summary and I tell the client, okay, Mr. Client, in order, I'll double check with you. You are 40 years old. You are in good health, non-smoker. And let's assume that we are protecting your family with $500,000, right? You follow me? Yes. All right. Now, Mr. Client, in order for you to have a $500,000 plan and 40 years old, you just need $161 to get started. Right? Do you see how I talk? I say 161. That's not too much. That's very little money, right? However, Mr. Client, remember we talk about the minimum. The minimum, if you put the minimum, that means that you will not have too much extra to invest to grow the money. You agree? So typically speaking, we want to put a little bit more. This just to show you this is the minimum. However, the policy would not perform as well. Okay, so it's okay for us to put a little bit more, and they'll say, yeah, sure, right? And what I did was I put the target, right? 6308, right? Divided by 12, that is $525. Okay, now I always mention about this number. Now, Mr. Client, say that if you have a lot of discretionary income or you have money in the stock market, you want to reallocate, the maximum you can put is $34,000. So remember, Mr. Client, you got the minimum, the guideline, and then the maximum, right? Right now, for today, I'm just using this one in the middle. I'm not using the maximum, and I'm not using the minimum. You follow me? Yes, I follow you. $525. Make sure you explain to customer, $525 is not the cost. $525 is the cost plus your investment, right? Make sure they understand. They say, okay, I understand. Now, I go into the non-guarantee illustration. I double check you are 40 years old. Okay, and every month you put $525. Each year you are ending up with $6,309. Okay, typically speaking, would it be okay? In America, we retire at 65. In America, most people retire at 65. So I design it so that we fund it until 65. Okay, do you see how I lead the conversation? I just lead the conversation, right? And then I can say, well, you can shorten it or you can extend it. It's flexible. But I lead the conversation. All right, so in 65, you are 40 and 65 years old. Total, you fund 25 years. You follow me? Each year, you fund $6,309, right? And then total in 25 years, you funded 100, you save into yourself, you save into the plan 157,000. You follow me? And then they say, yes, I follow you. Okay, and they say, Mr. Client, at that point, guess what? In your account, you have $246,000, right? And that is because you are growing your account. How much is it growing? In my example, I'm using 6%. Mr. Client, do you think 6% is reasonable or not? Now, everybody, you pay attention. Remember my first slide? I talked about the 94 years, and the S&P 500 is about 10%, right? I show the 10%. Do you see what I try to do? I show 10%. Now I use 6%. That is very good. I would never have the challenge. Customers say, "Oh, 6% is too high." No, it's not too high. The average is 10%, right? So that is how I handle the objection before objection. That's why I have few objections, because I handle before it happened, right? Okay, so based on this, Mr. Client, this money, you can use it for whatever you like, okay? Now, the first thing you always want to do, you want to show the benefit. You don't want to give them a bunch of numbers, they get confused. You want to show the benefit, all right? So how do I do that? I have $246,000. How do I use it? How do I use it? So then I go back to my case design, and I just go to the interest rate. There is a button over here, and you can just put the solve. And normally I will put at age 70. You have to use borrow is better, okay? Borrow is better, age 70. And now I'll say, Mr. Client, how about this? Let's say that you start in the beginning, you use your 401k first. At 70, you use this account. Is that okay? And say, yeah, it's okay. All right. Mr. Client, at 70, how many years do you want to have retirement income? You want to have to 90 or 95 or 100? Guess what? Everybody say, oh, no, not too long. I don't want to live to 100, right? They'll say, oh, 85 is okay. So I'll put 85. Exactly what I want, right? Exactly what I want. So I put 85. And that's it. And then I calculate again. And then now I don't have to explain everything again, right? Blah, blah, blah. We're putting 6,300 until 65 years old. You remember, right, Mr. Client? And remember, at 65, I have 246,000, right? But I told it that I'm going to give it grow a little bit. At 70 years old, I start taking my money, right? $85, right? Supplement your 24,000. Let's take a look at the next page. 70 until keep taking. 71, 72, blah, 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 until 80, 85. $24,000 each year. Now, pay attention on how I say it. Pay attention how I say it, right? I don't say that, oh, you have 24,000. I said, Mr. Client, by retirement, you have what? Your 401k. You have your retirement income. You have your social security. Maybe you have your real estate. How would you like $24,000 more? Do you see how I asked the question? How do you want to have $24,000 more on top of everything that you already have? Do you see the difference? If I only say you only have 24,000, that is a small number. But if I ask the question in a different way, and I ask, on top of everything, another $24,000. How do you feel about that? Right? And guess what, Mr. Client? Do you remember, do we need to pay tax on this? No tax at all. No tax at all. That's the power. Right? Now, you remember, Mr. Client, right? Do you remember that this is an insurance plan, right? So God forbid, anytime anything happened to me, my family, let's say that I have accident, I pass away at age 71. After taking some money, my family still gets 600,000. If I pass away at 80, guess what? I already took 265,000 for myself. And let's say I pass away, my family still get 348,000. Right? And that's how the powerful it is that I never lose money. I don't have to ever pay tax, and I can always take good care of my family. Any question, Mr. Client? Okay. Now, usually the client will say yes or no, blah, 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 and I'll answer the question. Now, what if the client says, I got no questions? What if the client say, I got no question? Everything sounds good. Let's go ahead and fill out the application. Okay? Guess what? I'm still going to talk. I'm just like Udaf. I like to talk, right? You know, why do I want to talk? Because I want to protect. I want to protect later. Don't come call me back and give me trouble. Remember, I had a question about what is non-guarantee, right? So when the people say non-guarantee, they get panic. They panic. When they see the word lapse, they panic. So I must explain it. All right. So the way I explain to the client, I said, Mr. Client, just so that you fully understand, do you see right here the non-guarantee? What does that mean? That simply means that I am assuming a rate of return of 6%. Mr. Client, do you agree 6%? Do you think is reasonable? Is too high or too low? And the client usually say, yeah, it's reasonable. Okay, it's non-guarantee, you agree, but it's reasonable. Now, let me show you something. There is also a page that says guarantee. Guarantee. What does that mean, Mr. Client? It simply means that if the market never, ever, for the next 30, 40, 50 years, never return anything. Do you see, Mr. Client? Never return anything. Zero. Do you think, Mr. Client, do you think that is possible? And they said, no way. No way is possible, right? Okay, so actually this page is required by law and compliance to show it. However, you also understand it will never happen. However, it must be included for compliance. And that's all I say. Because that way, when they go home or they ask their friend and sometimes the competitor, they say, oh, yeah, you see guarantee? Oh, man, guarantee, you lapse. You lapse. You pay nothing. You pay 23 years for nothing. It lapse. So I protect myself of how to explain. I don't get in trouble in the future, right? And that's really my sales flow. You know, today I went a little bit over a little bit. Sometimes I usually don't have to go that far, but today I kind of had to explain a little bit to you why the logic behind how I ask the questions. But normally speaking, my appointment maybe 45 minutes between the warming up and then to 40 minutes, depends.
Awesome.
Yep, and that's it.
That was
All right.
Wonderful. That was really wonderful, Sam. It is so clear. I'm going to do your copycat, okay? You will see the second Sam soon.
All right. I'm going to learn from you.
Sam, this is me, Dumber. I would like to learn one more time about that call option.
Okay, let me go ahead and show it. Alrighty. I know, let's see the call option. Okay. Let me go ahead and share the screen. Okay, do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and blow it up for you.
So is this $1,000 on S&P 500 price 1,000? Is that $1,000 of that, for example, Goldman Sachs $1,000 buying out of your $50? Is that what it is?
No, it simply means the insurance company negotiates with Goldman Sachs, right? And take Goldman Sachs, I have right here $1,000, or right here I have $1,000. All right, how much would it cost me? I'm the insurance company. How much would it cost me to protect my $1,000? My $1,000, right? And you get to keep anything above 12 and anything below 0, you take the hit. How much would it cost me to reach that? And Goldman Sachs, okay, I'm going to charge you $50 to protect your 1,000. That's all it means.
So if the market goes down on the call option, so you're going to lose that 1,000? Like, for example, 10% market goes down, your
no,
1,000.
Remember, right? That original $1,000. Remember, the original $1,000 is here, right?
Yeah.
So the original $1,000 is already there.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So if the market went south, went down, from the customer, the $1,000 is still there, right?
Yes.
It's still there. So the customer is good. What about for Goldman Sachs? Goldman Sachs lost $1,000 to protect, charge $50, right? Goldman Sachs lost the money. However, you got to understand that we are talking about an example. This is $1,000. How much money does Goldman Sachs move? Billions. Billions, right? And also you look at from the long term, just the S&P 500, how much is the return? 10%, right?
Yeah.
Do you think the Goldman Sachs invest in S&P 500? No way. No way. They invest in alternatives. They invest in, a lot more sophisticated investment, derivative, right? So they bet. How do they make money? They bet that they make more than your cap. Anything above the cap, they take it, and they charge you the fee. Some years they will lose money. Some years they will lose money, but we already see the long term. The long term is always minimum 10 to 20%, right? Did I answer the question?
Yes, you made
okay.
it. Thank you, sir.
Very good. All right. Any other question for me? And I think that there was another question. So I think that two people asked me about the sales and the talk and how to introduce this conversation. I think I already did that, right? How I carry the conversation, right?
Sam, if you don't mind.
Yes.
If you don't mind, could you please help me with the same page that you were in, that call option? How do you explain that? Can you explain it again for me, please?
Okay.
Just briefly, like before you did, very short.
I think that you can ask Uda for the for the audio. No problem. I explain one more time. Okay. Let me see. All right. So, Mr. Client, is it too good to be true? No, in America, nothing too good to be true. You agree, right? It is a capitalism country. Nothing. They don't give you. And they say, yeah, in your policy is Bima, right? Bima asked the question.
Yes, yes.
All right. So Bima, so in your account, you have $1,000 in the Nationwide account, right?
Yes.
So Nationwide take your cash value and then they break it up. You don't need to know this, but that's happening internally, right? So Nationwide take your $1,000 in your cash value and divide it in two buckets. $950 in one bucket and $50 in the other bucket, right? The $950 Nationwide invest in the corporate bonds, right? The corporate bond long-term pay you 5 to 5.5%, right? So your $950 invested for bonds, at the end of the year, it's going to get 5%. It's going to get back to $1,000. You agree, Bima?
Yeah.
You follow me, right? Okay, so that means your $1,000 is, first of all, is protected already, right? But what about the gain? What about the gain? So, Bima, the figure that Nationwide take from your other bucket, they're going to call and negotiate with Goldman Sachs or with Morgan Stanley, the big company, right? They say, okay, I'm going to buy some call option from you. Okay, how much would you charge me in order for you to protect my $1,000? Okay, my $1,000. If the market grow, okay, if the market, hold on a second. Hey, Shuli, 我等一下再打给你，可以吗？ Can I call you back? Yeah. Yeah. 可以。好 All right. Thank you. Bye. Sorry about that. All right. So Bima, so I have $1,000 in my little how do they say, my little jar. Yes.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs, how much you charge me to protect my 1,000? Anything under 12, you have to give me the money. You have to give me the 12%. So the 12%, it goes back to my customer's account. But anything above 12%, you keep it.
Okay.
If the market returns 15%, Goldman Sachs, you keep 3% plus my $50. However, if the market drop, then my customer don't get any money and I lose my fee to you. I pay the fee $50. Does it make sense, Bima?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
You are
Okay.
super duper fast. That makes it so exciting.
All right. Anybody
Sam.
else? Yes,
Hi, Sam.
Rakesh. Yes.
Yeah, I'm Rakesh from Boston. I have two questions. So, one is in the last decade that you mentioned, what was the average return on the IUL in the last decade? That is from a period of 2000 to 2010, because that was the really bad period, right? That's when stock market everything went down. So is it the example when you sold your 100K or $100, like whatever 10,000 was there, and then it grew and the gap was 80,000? Is that the true percentage that it grew, or was a different average on the in actual?
Okay, so first of all, you have to understand that the IUL does not actually invest in the index. You understand that, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so you cannot say, well, actually how the IUL perform because it does not follow the actual it did not invest in the index. But let me show you something. And the way I do it is that I have a lot of tools in my little magic box. Can you see my file? Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
All right. So this one you can call nationwide, they can send to you, right? So let's to answer your question. 2000, the last decade, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you take a look at that, right? 2000 until 2010. That is the actual S&P 500. Right? That's the actual in the middle column. Right? Now, if I were to use one of the IUL strategies, this one, JP Morgan, you take the averages right there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you want to actually calculate it, then it's very simple. You just grab Excel. Anything is negative. For example, this is negative. Then you put 0. This you put 0. This you put 0. This you put the cap. Let's say you want to put the cap at 12%. Then this will be 12. This will be 899. This will be 3. This will be 12, etc. And this will be 0. You follow me?
Yeah, I do.
And then you take the average, and that is your return for the last decade for the IUL.
Yeah. Another question, this may be silly question. What percentage of the premium normally, let's say if I'm just paying the minimum, not the minimum, the target premium, what percentage of that goes towards the cost of insurance? I.e., what percent goes in cost of insurance and what goes in the investment?
What percent? Okay, everybody, this is a very interesting question, okay? So the question is that if I understand, who was talking? Rakesh, right?
Yes.
So the question was, if I understand correctly, what percent of the premium is the cost? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
What kind of answer do you want? You want me to give you the answer year 1? Or do you want me to give you the answer for the year 20? Or do you want me to give you the answer the average?
You can give 1, 10, and then 20, that I can understand. That what I'll understand is maybe after 20 onwards, it's gonna either that will give me an idea of whether the expenses is growing or it's staying constant.
All right. So Rakesh, this question is very, very common, but you must learn or you must be careful how to answer it.
Yep.
Don't get into the trap. Don't get into the trap, because you get into the trap, you cannot get out. And once you get into the trap, no matter what you say, then you already lose them. I'll give you one example. What if I tell you that your cost on year 1 is 30%? What if I tell you the cost of your IUL plan is 30% on year 1? Would you still want to talk to me?
It's my God.
Right? You say, no, bye-bye, Sam, goodbye. I don't need to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
I will show you this by the example of the illustration, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the illustration. All right, so can you guys see my illustration? Yes? All right, so what is very simple, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at, this is a non-guarantee, right? So let me bring out my little calculator. Yes, you have my calculator. You can, oops, what happened here? All right. Let me make sure that you can see my screen. Oops, not this one. Let me see can you guys can see my illustration, my calculator, right? Okay.
Yep.
So do you see that year 1 I pay 6309?
Yes.
Right? And year 1 I have 4192, right? So that's very easy for me to come up with the cost. You agree?
Right.
So the cost is very, very simple to calculate, right? It's simply 4192 divided by How much money I put in? 6309, right?
Yes.
All right. How much is the cost? Minus 1, right? 34%. 34%. That answer your question, right, Rakesh?
Yeah. Yes.
That answer your question, right? But then also you cancel my appointment, right? Right?
True.
Right. So you have to, this is a sales. So it's a sales. So you must understand how to answer the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how can you answer it correctly? If you have somebody that trusts you very much, if that person trusts you very much and he knows that you will, he doesn't need to calculate, then you can tell them a target premium, your cost is going to be roughly about 4%. About 4%. Okay? In long term. Now, do you prefer, watch how I ask the question, okay? Do you prefer, Mr. Client, to pay 4% or 30% in tax? Do you prefer pay 4% in fee or 20-30% in tax? What do you prefer?
4%, of course, yeah.
Exactly. Because if I don't justify it, then 4% seems very high. But if I give you the comparison, 30% tax versus 4% cost, then 4% is a small potato, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you want to make sure. Now, of course, for if you guys are the technical people, you can actually calculate the cost very, very easily. Very, very easily. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if Udaf, you want me to help, I can help. But I prefer to answer the general question. I'm an engineer. I love to calculate. Okay, but calculate, don't close. When you calculate too much, you never close. You have to be like Udaf. Don't calculate too much. Just close. Just sign.
Yeah, we can calculate the cost. We know how to calculate the cost.
You know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
He's an engineer too, Sam. He's an engineer too.
Yeah. So yeah. So I love to learn how you calculate. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Sometimes.
Sam, I have one question.
Yes.
This is Shai from Illinois, Urbana, Illinois.
Okay.
Here we have net surrender value, staying on the same page that you have. We have talking about net surrender value. In the beginning, we have zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometime when the people see this zero, they freak out. So if they start probing or start asking, how do we, normally, rationally, explain it to the applicant, let's say.
Okay, so your question is, how do I say their name?
If the net surrender value is zero in the beginning, so in case, there's
all right, so Shai, so you're concerned about this zero, right?
Right.
Okay, so how to answer that question? Okay, very good question, right? Okay, so you must tell the client, Mr. Client, actually this is to protect you, right? It's to benefit you. Why? Because your account actually has money. Your account in the first year has 4,192. The second year has 8,600. It just means that you don't tap into it yet, right? So let me give you one example, Mr. Client. You have a 401k, right? Right, you have a 401k. You say, yes, okay, so how much you put the money in the 401k? Okay, you put like $15,000 per year, right? So at the end of year one, you have $15,000. If you take it out, what are you taking out? Your own money, you agree? You are taking out your own money, right? In your 401k, $15,000 you take on year one. You're taking your own money, right? So let me ask you, what is the point of investing if you are just taking your own money? Doesn't make any sense. What you want to do is that you want to invest, you want to take the gain. You don't want to take out your own money. You want to take the gain, right? So you will not take the money of yourself. You want to take the gain that your money make for you, not your own money. It's the same thing over here. Here is your money. Here is your money. You just don't touch it just yet. And that is to benefit you. The insurance company purposely give you the limitation to tap into, to force you to save. Wouldn't you agree that when you are forced to save, ultimately you always the beneficiary. You always get more, right? Because if you take out too early, then you're just taking out your money. What's the point? Right? So do not confuse with this number. This number is simply means the column of money that you can access. So in this way, for example, 0, the first 2 years you cannot take. But if you say that, let me change it a little bit for you. Let's say, for example, what if I do 7 pay? What if I, instead of doing that, I do 7 pay, right? Let's say I do 7 pay for 5 years, and then I calculate. Alrighty. So, Mr. Client, do you see, by funding more, instead of putting 6,000, I put 34,000, right? So guess what? On year 1, I can already take some money, right? Now, do you still want to take money? Of course not. You still don't want to take money because it's your own money still. You still want to let it to grow, right? Isn't that make sense? You want to leave the money to grow. This is just for emergency, and you can only take up to 90% of the surrender value. Shai, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Sam. Quickly, one more question. When we say we can take out 90%, right?
Yes.
That 90% of that is 90% of accumulated value or surrender value?
Surrender value.
Okay, thank you.
90% of surrender value. Of course, you still have to educate the client.
Yes.
Because the client, they want to say, oh, when can I take out? When can I take out? They always ask the question, when can I take out? Right? And you ask him the question. I say, Mr. Client, you're 40 years old, right? Tomorrow, when you go to your HR department, right? You have a 401k. Do you go to your HR department every single day? You ask, when can I take out? When can I take out? Do you ask that question?
Right.
No, when do you take out? 59 and a half. How come you don't go to your HR? You ask the same question. When can I take out? When can I take out? How come you don't ask that question? Why? Because you want the money to grow. It's the same here. You leave the money to grow so that it's for retirement. Then you have more money. If you take out too early, you're really just taking your own money. What's the point?
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
All right.
All right, Sam. Because
Thank
he
you
has
so
already
much, Sam. Thank you.
1.5 hours. Ooh, he spent with us 1.5 hours, and thank you again, me and my team on the behalf of Team Horizon. Sam, it is a great. So presentation, we learn a lot. I hope everybody enjoy. So might be they will call you. They will again say you bring the Sam again.
We need more.
Yes, we need more. So you got to move.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate. Okay, but I